Hi guys, my name's Samantha and I make videos on minimalism, my low buy no buy lifestyle, productivity, budgeting and intentional living. And today I wanted to share with you my top 20 frugal living habits that saved me money. I began my minimalism and frugal living journey in late 2018 as a reaction to having spent thousands of pounds on my wedding to my husband. We had a Scottish wedding and a Bengali wedding. He's Scottish and I'm British Bengali, and as most of our relatives live in Scotland and Bangladesh respectively, it wasn't really practical for us to expect them to travel to London. So instead we had two destination weddings, and as you can imagine, that cost a lot of money. Neither wedding, I would say, was exorbitantly extravagant. However, they were both traditional mid-sized weddings, and so we did spend a lot more money than we ever had. So after the weddings were over, or after we had paid for the weddings, I realized that I really wanted to pare things back a little, or actually rather a lot, and that I wanted to have more simplicity in my life. And that's when I discovered the low buy no buy community on YouTube. Now, if you don't know, a low buy no buy is when you commit to not spending any money for a period of time on things you consider non-essential. I've been living that lifestyle over the last year and a half, and I've documented my journey on several videos on my channel, which I'll link in the description below and also in the cards above. So in that time, my husband and I have adopted a number of frugal living habits that have actually allowed us to save aggressively, and we have actually put together a deposit for our house. That deposit amounts to £40,000, which translates to slightly over $50,000. The first frugal habit I want to talk about is that frugal people don't shy away from store brands. It's a real weird psychological thing that we all have. We start to form relationships with brands and companies because maybe we grew up with them or we had a good experience with them, but it's important to remember that brands and companies aren't people and you don't owe them your loyalty. Store brands are so much cheaper than name brands, so it's important to see if you can make any swaps that will be healthier for your bank balance. Frugal people also avoid making purchases for pleasure. Frugal people don't shop to get that dopamine hit that you can get when you make a purchase, because they recognize it's so easy to start becoming addicted to that high of shopping. Instead, they weigh up the need for an item and it's all about practicality. Frugal people plan ahead. At the start of my low buy no buy, I started logging all of my expenses, and then I realized that there was something that I didn't account for, and that was actually causing me quite a lot of financial pain, and that was not budgeting for gift giving. I have a number of special people in my life and I spend upwards of £100 on their birthday months, and because I never budgeted for them, every time those birthday months would roll up, I would suddenly realize that, oh, there's an outgoing that I hadn't accounted for. And so because I started planning out my expenses and planning ahead, I knew that these birthdays were coming up, and months in advance I'd start to save for them. So by the time that birthday did roll around, it was much less painful for me. Frugal people avoid waste. Now, waste unfortunately isn't completely unavoidable, but frugal people do spend a lot of time and energy trying to minimize as much waste as possible, be it by making sure that they eat all their leftovers or making sure that they use their products right up to the very last drop. Frugal people value functionality as well as beauty. I rarely buy anything just because it's beautiful. This serves not only my frugal mindset but also my minimalist tendencies and also my lack of living space. If you don't know, my husband and I actually live in the attic conversion of my parents' house, and although the room is actually pretty big for one person, it can be pretty tight for two people. I actually have a video on this channel giving you a little tour of our studio apartment, and I'll link that video in the description below and also in the cards above. If you watch that video, you'll see that most of our possessions are truly about functionality rather than beauty. Frugal people prepare meals from scratch. Now, if you do a cost comparison between subscription boxes and pre-prepared meals with actually going to the shops yourselves and buying your groceries and preparing food from scratch, you'll see that the latter is much cheaper. My mother does this, so we have a household of 5 and she cooks for all of us or makes the majority of our meals, and every month she spends between £400 to £500. So if you take 5 adults multiplied by 3 meals a day, that's 15 meals a day, multiplied by 30 days in a month, that comes out to 450 meals. If you do the math, you'll see that every meal comes out to about 88p to £1.12, which I think is incredible value for money. I do want to caveat this by saying, even though it's a lot cheaper than subscription boxes and pre-prepared meals, this does take my mum a lot of time. She cooks almost every day. We're really well fed in this family, and she also goes to the shops maybe 3 times a week, and she spends a lot of time and energy on this. We have told her, by the way, that she doesn't have to, but it's something that she enjoys doing, and she also has a very frugal mindset, so she doesn't want to pay over the odds for our food. I do think that when we move out and we start our own household, that it's unlikely that I will be putting in as much effort as my mum, because it does take a lot of time, and I think I would rather pay a little bit extra for my groceries to buy back a little bit of time and get that added bit of convenience. But I did want to bring up what my mother does so you can see the real value for money you can generate if you prepare all your meals from scratch. Frugal people value quality over quantity. Now this has really happened for me because we shop so little and we save so aggressively. I do have more discretionary income than I ever have before, so if I do want to buy something, I can opt for something more expensive, better quality, that will last me for longer than a cheaper alternative that I'll have to replace more quickly. Frugal people like to stay home, and the reason for that is you can save so much more money because you're not spending money on travel or entertainment costs or drinks and food. And I think this lockdown and quarantine that we're experiencing during this coronavirus crisis across the world has shown a lot of people how much money they can truly save by not going out. Frugal people manage to make their living space a lot more entertaining. They will invite friends round, they'll have movie nights, they'll host barbecues, and that way they cut down so much on the associated expenses of going out. Frugal people have like-minded friends. Some people do find the frugal lifestyle a bit weird. They might look down on it. They might think the person who's trying to live a frugal lifestyle is either poor or unsuccessful. I would say pay no heed to that. You have to live your life the way that you want to live it, and you're completely entitled to spend your money the way that you see fit. If you do have people like that in your life, ignore them, but if they do bother you, you might have to think about distancing yourself a little from them. You'll also find online communities that are much more supportive of this lifestyle. For example, on YouTube, there are so many channels dedicated to frugal living and minimalism and intentional living, and I find that personally a huge source of support and inspiration. Frugal people think long term. Often there's a reason why people are being frugal. Maybe they're trying to save for a house or a wedding or a car. Whatever it is, they do have a goal in mind. Frugal people continually learn about money. There is so much to learn about money, not just how to save it. There are banking products on the market that you could explore. You could also learn how to grow your wealth. You could also learn about pension funds or investing in the stock market and property market, etc., etc. Learning about money management is a lifelong process, and frugal people really like doing that because they want to ensure that their hard-earned cash works as much for them as possible. Frugal people live within their means. This is a really interesting point for me because a lot of people imagine that frugal people have no materialistic tendencies, but that's not true. We all have our weak spots. While we've been house hunting, I've noticed that I do have a tendency to want to overextend myself and Andrew in order to get the best house possible. And it's really great to have Andrew because he does pull me back from the brink. We do have different vices, and there will be times where I pull him back from overspending and vice versa, and that way we ensure that we both live within our means. Frugal people don't always upgrade their tech. This is something that I learned ages ago. In my day job, I'm the head of video at one of UK's largest parenting sites, and I've noticed that the content that always performs the best for us is always content that's interesting. It doesn't matter whether it's the most beautifully shot piece of filmmaking ever. As long as it's interesting, it will do well, but if it's not interesting, it will absolutely bomb. So it's better to get your gadgets, really understand how they work, use them to their max, and then think of upgrading. So for example, with photography and videography, don't just steam in there and buy the best camera on the market. Buy something mid-range and really learn how to use it. The same goes with phones. I think a lot of people have wised up to the fact that it's pointless to upgrade your technology every single year. Something like an iPhone, for example, they are state-of-the-art mini computers, and because of the premium that you pay for them, they should last for years to come. Now don't get me wrong, I have an iPhone 7 and I would really love an iPhone 11. My cousin has one and we did a comparison test and her camera is much better than mine. However, this is still working perfectly well. It produces great video and great photographs, and I really don't need to upgrade it right now. Frugal people avoid trying to keep up with the Joneses. There is such a freedom from choosing to have a frugal lifestyle and veering away from trying to compete with your peers. I've actually made a video on this on my main channel. For those of you who don't know, I run another YouTube channel called London City Girl, which specializes in educational content. It's a lot bigger than this channel. It has 100,000 subscribers, and on that channel I made a video called Why We Crave a Lifestyle We Cannot afford, which goes into why people overspend, and a lot of it comes down to trying to keep up with the Joneses. If you're interested in that type of content, I'll link that video in the description below. Also, if you've made it this far into the video and are enjoying the content, then why not like this video and make sure to subscribe for more content like this in the future. The next habit that frugal people have is that they have productive hobbies. Because frugal people have chosen to cut out shopping as a pastime and have drastically cut down their consumerist habits, they do end up having a lot more spare time, or that's what I found in my case. So this last year, because I wasn't shopping so much and my headspace wasn't being taken up with dreams of I want to buy this, I want to buy that, I found that I had a lot more spare time than I previously ever had. And so I filled it with going to the gym, and my fitness and health became a real focus for me. Frugal people put aside money on payday. I love payday because the first thing I do in the morning is I get up, log into my online banking, pay off my credit card balance in full, and then I put away 40 to 50% of my earnings into my savings. Now, I'm only able to do that because we are incredibly lucky and we're living rent-free in my parents' house, and I don't think Andrew and I will ever have the opportunity again to save as much money as this, so we really want to take advantage of it as much as possible. But if you aren't able to save such a high percentage, just save what you can. Even 2 to 5% will make a real difference. Frugal people will think that buying secondhand is an option. Now, I have to admit, I have been slightly snobby about buying secondhand in the past, and I have thought you can never get anything good secondhand. However, I have been proved wrong in the last few months. I was looking for a furniture suite, and my friend who's moving to Switzerland actually got in touch with me via Facebook because she knew that I was looking for some furniture, and she offered us a 4-piece set for less than £200. It's an absolute bargain. The furniture is absolutely beautiful, and I'm really glad that I went down the second-hand option. Frugal people are careful with their consumption of consumerist social media. Whatever you follow on social media will have a huge impact on your values and way of thinking. So if you're following Instagram bloggers who are promoting a luxurious lifestyle, it's inevitable that you will start to want to replicate the way that they live because you'll normalize it and think that that's perfectly fine. If you are intent on having a more frugal lifestyle, then why not curate your feed so that you see more intentional living and more mindful content? Frugal people regularly check their bank statements and stay on top of direct debits. Before I started my low buy no buy, I was spending over £500 on my direct debits, but as I started logging my expenses, I've slowly whittled down those direct debits so that now I spend less than £100. I do want to say that £160 of that was travel, which has been cut out because of lockdown. So if you were to add that back in, I whittled down my direct debits from £500 to approximately £260, which is still half and really good going in my opinion. Frugal people shop their stash, repair, repurpose and recycle before buying. Essentially, buying is the last option. I'll give you a small example. Andrew and I have been wanting to change our bedding for several months now. Our bedding is approximately 3 years old and it's definitely seen better days, but we've both been holding off because we actually want to get into our new house and start furnishings from scratch, and we don't really want to spend any unnecessary money. So we've been waiting and waiting, and over the last month I was doing a declutter of our spare room, and that's when I found 2 sets of bedding that were completely brand new. I'd forgotten all about them. They were my bedding. The reason why I stopped using them was they were very, very dark colors, and in my previous bedroom it used to really bring down the mood of the room, but because our living space is so much lighter, brighter and bigger, it can really handle this darker bedding. So we have new bedding, have thrown away the old bedding, and we've not spent a single penny. So it's always a good idea to hold off and try and think creatively before jumping in and buying something. And with that, I come to the end of my list of 20 frugal living habits that save me a lot of money. If you enjoy intentional living and minimalism content, then I will link similar videos in the description below and also in the cards above that you might enjoy. Make sure to subscribe, and as always guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!